We talk about Saturday night's main event from this past week, and this is the third Saturday night's main event in the experiment that is Jesse the Body Ventura. And I talked a little bit about it in a quick little take on Twitter, but I want to get your side of things because, listen, I love nostalgia. Saturday's main event, as we were just talking about a few minutes ago versus Backlash, I think it's cooler to go to. If I was going to bring a non-wrestling fan, it might be something based on the nostalgia, based on the fact that it's on NBC, based on the package and the history of the event and the whole 9 years, based on the fact that it's in a shorter package, right? All of it. I love it, right? The nostalgia. And one nostalgia thing I was very much looking forward to at the start of this reincarnation was Jesse the Body Ventura. But now that we're 3 episodes into Jesse Ventura, I really feel like, I'm sorry, but this off the cuff, not being scripted thing, it's kind of run its course. There was many instances on Saturday of Jesse Ventura going off script to the point of like, what are you talking about? That's not true at all. And what does that have to do with anything? Do you remember and recall some of these from Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I remember pretty well is actually 2 things. There was 2 parts where he was talking when Lillian was trying to announce everything. Like, so it was like,
there's that. Yes.
That was one part, which, okay, that's a little thing I'm not that worried about. They don't, Jesse doesn't do this all the time like he used to and all that. Mm-hmm. I get that. The other part was interesting about like Damian Priest, like going out the door. Like, that's literally the stipulation of the match. Who the hell cares?
And that's the second straight Saturday night main event where he fixated, because he does 1 match per show, right? So that's the second one in a row where he fixated on something and essentially went into business for himself about it and went into business for who he wanted to promote. That WWE had like, no, that wasn't part of the story. That's not what they're trying to push, right? They're literally trying to push this narrative that Damian Priest walked out the door, kind of showing disrespect to Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre is a bad guy. Damian Priest is a good guy. That's the message they're trying to proclaim. But Jesse Ventura's over here taking 45 seconds to a minute to go off on the fact that he walked out of the door, which is irrelevant because that's a rule. That's not a new rule. That's a rule that's always existed. Yeah. So he's like, and he did that in the previous match when there was like a fast count, not a previous match from this show, but a previous show where there was like a fast count. And that wasn't anything to do with, they're trying to focus on this person won in this way and that they're the champion or retain the championship. And he's just focused on, well, that was a fast count. That doesn't really count. And you're like, well, it does count. Let's move on. Let's talk about what matters here.
Yeah. And I will say though, Michael Cole did a good job of kind of like, I don't want to say covered it up a little bit, but he kind of did.
Just being like, that's irrelevant, Jesse. Let's move along. But there was other points, right? And obviously he talked about him and Pat McAfee being the only ones ever to go from the announce booth into the ring straight from commentary. I don't know where he got that crazy stat from. I mean, Michael Cole even announced like, hey, a side note here, I'm actually undefeated at WrestleMania. And then he followed, who did you face at WrestleMania? Like, and obviously Jerry the King Lawler has gone from announce booth to in the ring many times. Even people like Jim Ross on occasion have Jonathan Coachman and Matt Stryker. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about Booker. How many times has somebody been in the Royal Rumble have gone from the announce booth into the ring? So that thing about him and
I was gonna say, didn't JBL get in a Royal Rumble one year?
Like it's such a stat that I don't know. Like whatever way he's trying to focus on it. About whether they went straight from the announce booth, whether they were an announcer that got into wrestling or a wrestler who was an announcer, whatever way he wants to spin it, it's just not true. Because whatever Jesse Ventura has done and Pat McAfee have done, others have done in that way. Right. So that's inaccurate. But I just love how Jesse Ventura also then said that 35 years ago, NBC and network television would have never allowed a steel cage match on, network TV back at the original Saturday night's main event. This came seconds after Michael Cole announced that there have been 2 previous steel cage matches in Saturday night's main event history over 35 years ago involving Hulk Hogan. So him like saying, WrestleMania would have never been on Easter Sunday last year, and it's like, actually it was, it's happened. Like, so you're mentioning something that is not true. Clearly you didn't do your homework because he just said it. It happened back in the day. And he said it twice. Like they would have never allowed this on television 35 years ago.
Let's be honest though. Do you think Jesse really prepares? I think he just shows up.
No, and that's where this is getting like, sorry, Jesse. I don't think that you're the right. It's not your controversy. It's not any of this. It's not any of those kind of things. It's just the fact that you're just not familiar enough with the product.
What I will say though, I do like when he does stuff with Tess, like outside there, like
maybe just keep him on that, because that way it's a little bit easier to rein him in. Because if he's going off of a tangent about somebody walking out the door, it's just not in the middle of the match. Like, well, WWE's got the cameras on Drew McIntyre and the cameras on Damian Priest. They're trying to sell you something. They're doing things very strategically because they're trying to sell you a specific narrative. And he's over here being like, well, he could have just got his limousine driver to pick him up. Like, he's not really the winner. And it's like, they're trying to sell you that this is the end of a blood feud, that, all this kind of stuff. And he's just like,
I will say though, I'll to that point with Jesse, I do think there's a place for him. And again, like I said a moment ago, I think it's with him and Joe Tessitore, doing like the, like I would call almost like intermission, like the intermission report.
And I will say, because you can cut him off probably a little bit easier there, right? You can just,
you
can just be like, all right, to the ring we go. Because there was something when he was talking about Jey Uso and Logan Paul. I don't understand it. Maybe you understand it better, but he said, do you think we can get Mike Tyson to take a dive? And that's when they're like, all right, let's send it to ringside. I had no idea what he meant by that.
Well, I know exactly what he meant by that. Because
what was Jake Paul?
Yeah, it was the whole because it's Jake Paul, because the Jake Paul Tyson match that we saw on Netflix.
So I mean, I don't know how
he's insinuating that Mike Tyson took a fall in that match.
So I guess I don't know how that necessarily.
I understood what he was saying. I did
relates to Jay and Logan, but like I guess keep him on that side of things. I guess. But I think it's time as a color commentary, right? And good for Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee has never looked more professional than when he is all of a sudden the most professional, because he's always the off-collar, off-the-cuff one. And now he's over here being the professional one, being like, well, Jesse, let's rein it in a little bit. Let's be a little more professional.
That's funny because he's the one doing that from Pat. You don't expect that from him.
Yeah, well, he someone's got to be the parrot, right, in this situation, I guess. You don't normally get it from Pat when he's with Michael, but when Jesse Ventura is there, all of a sudden, he looks like Bob Costas sitting at ringside.
Well, to me, you know what Pat McAfee does? Like, it reminds me of in that situation. It's like he's the son of Jesse, and Jesse's like the old man, and Pat goes, "All right, Dad, it's time to let's reel it in here. Let's stop it now."
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see on July 12th when Saturday Night's Main Event returns. Jesse Ventura is going to be at the booth, and what he'll have to say that completely means nothing in just a few weeks.